All praises due to Allah, the person of Master Muhammad. My name is Brother Minister YaSin Allah, and I'm here to deliver the preachings and teachings of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, that the black man is God, the white man is the devil, and that we're living in the judgment or the change of worlds. That the old wicked world of the white man is going out, the world of murder, robbery, lies, exploitation, suppression, oppression, and the new world of the black man is coming in, the world of freedom, justice, and equality. And this time that we're living in is commonly known as the judgment, the hereafter, the day of reckoning, the day of decision, and many other names that we find recorded in the Bible and the Quran. Before we get into our subject matter, I want to open up in the name of Allah and the person of Master Muhammad, the great Mahdi, who was and come and has come to restore us, who were lost from our own, the kingdom of Islam, and to destroy those who have destroyed us. Ameen. Alhamdulillah. Again, my name is Brother Minister YaSin Allah, and our subject matter is Ramadan. Today, I believe, is the second day of the Orthodox world or old world of Islam, Ramadan celebration or fast, as they call it. And, of course, we should all know that Ramadan is actually the name of the 9th month in the Arab lunar calendar, and it means excessive heat. And specifically, Ramadan in the Holy Quran, we are taught in chapter 2, verse 185, that it's incumbent on all Muslims to observe Ramadan. And basically, the procedure for Ramadan is to abstain or not eat or drink during the daylight hours. And after the sun sets, then you can eat and drink. And Ramadan lasts for 30 days from the new moon at the beginning of Ramadan and the sighting of the new moon after the month of Ramadan. Alhamdulillah. Now, Ramadan has kind of evolved into this somewhat controversial, at least in my mind, subject matter since the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad departed, and because the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad taught his followers that we should not participate in the old world or Orthodox world or the Arab way of Ramadan. And after he departed, this became somewhat of an issue, and it's an issue now. And I really believe it needs to be talked about and explored. Some time taken to explore it and really get some understanding on it, because it takes us to different important areas of the teachings of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad and what they mean and how they impact the old world or Orthodox world of Islam. First, Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, that great Arabian prophet, Muhammad ibn Abdullah, Muhammad son of Abdullah, received, according to the Arab scholars, received his first revelation of the Quran in the month of Ramadan. And over a period of 22 to 23 years, he received continuous revelations of the Quran, and these revelations were compiled into the book that we call today the Holy Quran. Praise be to Allah. So the Quran teaches us that because of Prophet Muhammad receiving his first revelation in the month of Ramadan, that all Muslims should abstain from eating during the daylight hours and only eat at night. Hence, the Ramadan celebration. Alhamdulillah. And when the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad started teaching the black man in the wilderness of North America, he taught us not to participate in the Sunni Ramadan, Sunni or Orthodox world of Ramadan. Now, and let me just clarify that all the world of Muslims, followers of Prophet Muhammad, participate in this old world or Orthodox Ramadan. And So it's a very important and special time for them. Conversely, again, when the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad was with us, he taught us, the black man here in the wilderness of North America, the lost found Nation of Islam, that we should not participate in that Ramadan. And he was very emphatic about this. So, we want to understand that. And he was very clear, and he left a clear written record as to his reasons why and the science why we shouldn't participate in the Sunni Ramadan. And as I said a few minutes ago, this subject of do the followers of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad participate in Ramadan or don't participate in the Orthodox world of Ramadan really leads us to different important areas in the teachings of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, which we will get to later in this talk. But first, again, I just want to say that Prophet Muhammad, like all the prophets, did a great work, and Prophet Muhammad in particular did a great work in establishing or reestablishing Islam, to preserve Islam, to preserve the truth so that we might partake of it or have understanding of the truth in this day and time. So when we are talking about not participating in Ramadan, it's not that we are saying that Prophet Muhammad's work has no significance or no bearing on what's going on today. It has great significance and bearing, but everything has to be understood. And before we can get understanding, we have to have some knowledge or some information of the facts of the matter. So the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad taught us that we don't participate in the Orthodox world. By Orthodox, I mean Orthodox is a word that means kind of like proper, something that's accepted, the accepted practice. So when we say Orthodox Islam, we're talking about the way Islam is practiced by the majority of the followers of Prophet Muhammad. Sometime in the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we call Orthodox Islam Old World Islam. And when we say Orthodox Islam, we're talking basically about the two great houses of Orthodox Islam, the Sunni house, who follow the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad, and we're talking about the Shiites as well, who follow Prophet Muhammad's relative Ali, alhamdulillah. So, and that's an interesting history in itself, and that's not our subject matter, so we don't want to digress. In any event, the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad taught us that, and this is very important to understand, and just having a framework or overarching understanding, is that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that his teachings comprise what he called New Islam. And by New Islam, he means that his teachings are going to be different from what the prophets taught, because Mr. Muhammad received his teachings from Allah in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, or God in person, which is what, and we don't want to lose sight of this, all the prophets, especially from Moses to Jesus, or even Moses to Prophet Muhammad, all taught about the coming of Allah after the workings or time of Yaqu's made man, the white man. And this is very important. This is a critical point. And once God comes, then both the Bible and the Quran have been fulfilled. Those teachings are fulfilled, and then we go into a new phase or a new teachings from God himself in the resurrection. So we want to bear this in mind, and we want to have understanding on this, because this is kind of like the foundation or even the overarching understanding of this whole subject matter about Ramadan, is that Prophet Muhammad taught his followers something that is symbolic until the coming of Allah. And once Allah comes, then there's no need for many of the rituals and that signify waiting for the coming of God. Praise be to Allah. Now, alhamdulillah, I want to read a quote from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad on this very point. And this is from Book 1 of How to Eat to Live, Why and How We Fast in December. I have chosen for quite a few years the month of December for my followers to fast as in the month of Ramadan, the Orthodox world of Ramadan. It serves as a sign that we, the lost found nation, are the end of all signs pertaining to the pilgrimage and fasting in the month of Ramadan. Thus, the pilgrimage, Hajj, and Ramadan are both symbolic rituals, if you will, all talking about the black man and woman here in the wilderness of North America and the coming of Allah God to us. And this needs to be understood, and we're going to be repeating this several times in this video, because this is the crucial point that we cannot overlook. Now, in that the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad didn't prescribe the black man and woman in the wilderness of North America, his followers, to participate in the Arab Ramadan, he gave us the month of December as a kind of symbolic Ramadan to get us away from celebrating the false holiday of Jesus' birth, Christmas, which we should all know that Jesus wasn't born on the 25th of December, and the wickedness and commercialization surrounding that holiday, white man's holiday, which also leads into New Year's celebration. And as we all know, these both Christmas and New Year's is based on a pagan white man, savage and backward understanding, sun worship, and different types of deviltry, orgies, and sexual perversions, and eating the divinely prohibited flesh, and consuming alcoholic beverages, and all those things that we know that we as righteous Muslims don't participate in. Alhamdulillah. And of course, again, Jesus wasn't born on the 25th of December. We understand that's based on their sun worship, and that Jesus was actually born between the first and second week in September. Alhamdulillah. So, Mr. Muhammad taught us that we should abstain from eating in the daylight hours in the month of Ramadan, and that we could eat during the after the sun went down. Alhamdulillah. Now, the basic procedure, and let me just rephrase that. And he taught us that even though the word fasting is used to describe participating in Ramadan, not eating during the daylight hours, actually, technically, that's not a fast. He said that actual fast is abstaining from food for 2 days or more. Alhamdulillah. And if you go on a spiritual fast, then you should fast or abstain from eating food for 3 days or more. Alhamdulillah. So he explained to us that even though the Arabs call Ramadan fasting, technically it's not a fast. Alhamdulillah. But nonetheless, they get credit, or anyone, at least in my mind, gets credit for abstaining from food and drink during the daylight hours, especially if the Ramadan falls in the summer on our solar calendar. Alhamdulillah. Now, Mr. Muhammad was, this subject is not a new subject matter in terms of why doesn't the followers of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad participate in the Orthodox or Old World of Islam Ramadan. And again, he left a clear record on this, and what I'm speaking about today is based on his teachings, and we have a few quotes from him that crystallize this whole subject matter. Alhamdulillah. So, Mr. Muhammad said he gave us the month of December to have a fast. Now, it should be understood that part of the teachings of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, How to Eat to Live, involves, number one, that we should eat one meal a day. So, and to a certain extent, we, the followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we abstain from eating during the daylight hours as a way of life. So that should be nothing new to us. Number two, Mr. Muhammad advised us, prescribed for us to take fasts, actual fasts, 2, 3, and more days of fasting. So again, not eating and drinking is part of the teachings of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad in terms of developing ourselves spiritually as well as purifying ourselves physically. Alhamdulillah. And Mr. Muhammad, and this can be found in How to Eat to Live, Book 1 and Book 2, he advises his followers not only to go on fasts where we don't eat, but he also advises us to go on fasts where we don't eat or drink, known as dry fasting. So if you are into fasting, and if you ever participated or done a dry fast, then you will know that's a very serious and arduous thing, to not eat or drink for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days. White man says, you'll die after that, but you won't, alhamdulillah. And so this is part of the teaching. So fasting is nothing alien or distinct from the teachings of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad. If someone wants to make the argument that you can't fast, or Mr. Muhammad didn't prescribe fasting for us because we couldn't do it, and we're gonna get more into this later. But I just wanted to make sure I emphasize that point about fasting is a part of the teachings of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad. Praise be to Allah. Now, Mr. Muhammad, again, was emphatic that we should not fast with the old world of Islam. And I've heard many people within the last 10 years, maybe 15 years, somehow, in some convoluted way, well-meaning on their part, but nonetheless, not what the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad taught, somehow are trying to tell us that Mr. Muhammad actually wanted us to fast with the old world of Islam. And not to be controversial, not to be difficult, not to cause division, but I just can't find that in the teachings of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad. And there are other people that feel and believe the same way. For instance, this is from How to Eat to Live, Book 2, pages 56 and 57. If you can convince me it is necessary to fast in the month of Ramadan because of Muhammad receiving the Holy Quran, or the first revelation of the Holy Quran, then I will go along with it. However, since the Quran was received over a period of years, I am very much baffled in trying to understand why we should fast in the month of Ramadan. Of course, this is the Arab way. So now Mr. Muhammad is raising the question, and a very significant question: if the Quran was revealed over a period of 22 to 23 years, then why are they, the Arabs, using 1 month to celebrate Muhammad receiving the revelations that comprise the Holy Quran? Granted, the scholars teach that this is the first, the month of Ramadan, the 9th month on the Arab calendar, was the month that Muhammad received his first revelation. Nonetheless, Mr. Muhammad is saying, look, it took 22 to 23 years for him to compile the Quran, so it doesn't really square 100% as to why 1 month would be associated to celebrate that. Alhamdulillah. Now, Mr. Muhammad goes on, and at least in my mind, this sheds great light, great understanding on the whole science of Ramadan. The significance of this Arabic fasting in Ramadan is that the spiritual darkness of Yaqub's made man, the white race, eating and drinking, sport and play, was the order of the white world. Until the daybreak of truth coming in the first of the 7,000 years after the 6,000 years of spiritual darkness and evil of the white man's world. Alhamdulillah. So Mr. Muhammad is saying, and this is beautiful, that the white man's world represents darkness. When we read the scriptures, when we read the Quran, and it talks about night, it talks about darkness, it's talking about the reign of Yaqub's made man, the white man's world. And that when these books, especially the Quran, talks about the light of day, the sun, this is referring to when Allah in person comes and we are under his teachings. Thus, we are living now in the bright spiritual world of Allah, the great Mahdi, and the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom praise is due forever. Therefore, we are not the children of darkness, but the children of light and truth. So, Ramadan is actually a great ritual, a great dramatic ritual symbolizing the rule of the white man, symbolizing darkness. You can eat and drink at night, but not in the day. In the day, we are sad and a little annoyed or agitated because we can't eat or drink during the daytime because of the absence of the light of truth, as taught by God in person, in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. Alhamdulillah. Now this sheds great light on the whole controversy, if you will, and perhaps it's not controversial for some people, but it sheds great light on the science of Ramadan, why there's a Ramadan in the first place, whether it be the Arab way or the way the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad taught us. To continue, actually, divinely, there is no fast set for the children of the light of God, and their fasting ceases. But until we have accomplished our work of perfection of self and separation of us from the spiritual darkness of Yaqub's made man and teachings, we fast to get out of it and take a month that we used to worship as being the month in which the birth of Jesus came about. Praise be to Allah. Again, New Islam is based on, predicated on, the coming of Allah in the person of Master Farad Muhammad as the fulfillment of all the scriptures. That Yaqub's made man, the white race, was allowed to rule for 6,000 years, but at the end of that time, then God would come and resurrect the lost foundation of Islam here in the wilderness of North America, and we will be taught by him, or we will be under his teachings through the last messenger of Allah, the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, whose job it is to teach us about the coming of God, the appearance of God, the presence of God, and that we are under his teachings. Alhamdulillah. Now all this is very clear to me. And these facts, this truth leads me to that it appears to me, and I could be wrong, but this is just my interpretation, that it seems as though, and this is not a recent thing, but for some of the followers of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, there's always been some seed of disbelief as to whether his teachings of Islam was right and exact. And that somehow the old Orthodox way of Islam, the old Arab way of Islam, is actually the correct Islam, and that Mr. Elijah Muhammad teachings was really some kind of trickery or some kind of subterfuge in order to wake the black man up, so we can now accept and follow true Islam as the old Arab way of Islam. Now, I completely disagree with that. You know, if I heard followers of Honorable Elijah Muhammad say that in terms of participating in the December Ramadan, that was kindergarten, and now we follow the Arab way of this Ramadan, and we on a higher level. But how could that be? Because now you're contradicting the whole premise of what the teachings of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad is about, that we got the teachings of God in person and not prophet knowledge, if we want to go that route. Remember, Mr. Muhammad said that he didn't teach prophet knowledge, he taught the knowledge of the gods. So, and this is not to diminish Prophet Muhammad's role, but Prophet Muhammad was a prophet, a messenger, and he never ascribed himself to be anything else but that. But the scriptures, both the Bible and the Quran, is based on the coming of God in the last days to teach his people, the lost found nation of Islam here in the wilderness of North America. So how could God's teachings be kindergarten teachings? What does that say about Mr. Muhammad's characterizing, and it comes from Master Farah Muhammad, supreme wisdom? God's teachings is called supreme wisdom. I think the common definition of supreme is something that's above everything else. So how could anything that the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad taught us be considered inferior to what the prophets taught? And this is, at least in my mind, a very significant or salient point that we, the black people in the wilderness of North America, especially those of us who have come through or into the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we should really sit down and think about this, ponder over this very carefully, and come to some just, equitable, and right conclusion about what are we doing and where are we at with understanding our teachings and the teachings of the prophets as well. Praise be to Allah. Supreme wisdom. The Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad taught us supreme wisdom. Yes, his teachings are altogether different in many, many ways than what Prophet Muhammad taught. But remember, I mean, this is commonly understood that, number one, infused or framed, Prophet Muhammad's teachings are framed or infused with the old Arab culture, the way they understood things 1400 or more years ago. So that has to be understood as well. As I remember back in the day, Minister Farrakhan put it, very clearly, and this is going back to like the late 60s, early 70s, and it was talking about should we be Orthodox Muslims or follow the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad. And Brother Minister Farrakhan said, we're not going to be riding a camel down 125th Street reciting the Quran. No, this is 21st century America. Everything is different. We're dealing with, a modern world, modernity as they call it, advanced technology. Aside from the fact that we the lost found people here in the wilderness of North America, God's people, and we can't participate in the practices and things that they did 1400 years ago, which actually are signs of us in this day and time, that now with the coming of God in person are needed no more. They've been fulfilled. It's like trying to fulfill the same scriptures of history over and over again. When it's been fulfilled, it's done, it's closed out, if you will. Praise be to Allah. So, again, we, the followers of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, must understand that Mr. Muhammad taught us new Islam. This is something that he used, a term that he used, new Islam. And to support that, if you will, remember the Bible and the Quran only take us to the door of the hereafter. They don't explain or really teach us about what the hereafter or the new world will be like, because that comes with a different book or a different teaching. So the Quran and the Bible only can take us so far. They only cover 6,000 years of history. Praise be to Allah. So let us understand. Let us have understanding. Let us study more. And perhaps more than anything else, let us be truthful about the teachings, about what we're reading. Don't let us fall into any type of intellectual dishonesty in order to make a point. Let us be truthful people. You know, we're dealing with the truth. We're supposed to be people who are righteous by nature. We are people who are righteous by nature. So let us deal with the truth righteously. Let us come on the square. We're dealing with truth here. And let us really come to a conclusion or some understanding that squares with the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad for those of us who are followers of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad. And I would probably say that this video is probably primarily directed at the followers of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad, but of course everyone can get some understanding from it. Praise be to Allah. So I think I just about covered everything that I wanted to go into. And in closing, anyone that's participating in the Orthodox or Old World Ramadan, I wish you much success, and I hope that you achieve the any type of spiritual rejuvenation or physical rejuvenation that you're looking for, and that you have a peaceful and successful journey, and that once that the fast ends, that you can actually reflect on the things that I've said, and especially what the Most Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad taught us about Ramadan. And that I just want to make one last point too. Again, going back to participating in the Old World Ramadan in the hot months, June, July, August, where the days are long and the temperatures are hot. Yes, that is an arduous thing. Again, however, don't think somehow that makes those who participate in that makes them some kind of superior individual for participating in that, and that the followers of Elijah Muhammad are somehow weak and can't do that because he gave us the month of December. Because again, Mr. Muhammad prescribed for us to participate in very long fasts. If you fast for 7 days, not eating for 7 days, drinking for 7 days, that's pretty arduous. 10 days, that's takes some dedication. That takes some strength. That's not to mention the dry fast. And Mr. Muhammad was explicit about dry fasting as well, not eating or drinking for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, 7 days. Can you really imagine not eating or drinking for 7 days? Yeah, that's a serious thing, and you have to be mentally and spiritually and physically prepared to do such a thing. Nonetheless, it has been done by the followers of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad. So, and I'm not saying those of us that have to work every day, can do that, but nonetheless, this is part of the teachings. This is part of his teachings. So don't think that somehow that because he taught us to have a Ramadan and abstain from eating during the daylight hours in December, that his teachings are somehow weak, or that his followers are somehow weak and that we can't fast, because that's far from the truth. And we should understand these things. And again, let us just be truthful about everything. Let's lay all the cards on the table, if we want to use that metaphor. And just get at the truth of this thing and put the teachings of the Honorable Mr. Elijah Muhammad into effect, and practice them the way he taught us that they should be practiced. So I'm going to bring this to a close, and I want to thank everyone who viewed this video. And again, I hope to do many more on different subject matters that I think need to be spoken about, taught on. And I want to close out as I open in the name of Allah and the person of Master Prophet Muhammad, the great Mahdi, who was to come and has come to restore us to our own, the kingdom of Islam, and to destroy those who have destroyed us. All praise is due to Allah. Peace, peace.